food we serve is the vehicle to share Aloha. It's not about being a restaurant. It's about sharing Aloha. We just get to do it over food. And there's so many deep connected meanings, I think, across not just Hawaiian culture, but all of Polynesia that it's a pretty awesome group to be engaged with.
Need a partner who sees the big picture? Forza Management. We're not just property managers, we're strategic partners. Navigating the complex world of commercial real estate can be daunting. That's where Forza Management comes in. Forza Management provides services in the mountain and desert states and covers all types of asset classes, including retail, industrial, and office. Our team of experts delivers exceptional property management services, namely property maintenance, lease administration, and annual CAM reconciliations. When looking at your next property, check out our website at forzacommercial.com. Forza Management, maximizing your investment and minimizing your stress.
Welcome back to the Dirt Dog Pod, and today we have a wonderful guest. We have Rob Ertmann, CEO with Mo Bettah.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, time two.
Time two. There you go.
That's it. Everything's better the second time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, a lot of our followers, as when I put out, the concept that I was going to be sitting down with you today, a lot of them are asking just about your concept because it is unique, and you do have now a competitor or two in the space, but you still kind of are in that niche where you don't have a whole lot of competitors, right? And I think compare that to maybe like a sandwich chain. It's a lot harder to find the next, Jimmy John's location.
For sure. For sure.
So how is it operating in that space? Do you prefer that, or tell us about that?
No, we love that. I think the fun thing about what we get to do is, you're right, there's not a lot of competitors, but I think that's where we look at it as a challenge where a lot of our job isn't so much trying to figure out what our point of differentiation is from another competitor. If you're in tacos or you're in pizza or you're in burgers, you've got to tell everybody why you're different than the next guy. And for us, we actually get the fun of educating people on what Hawaiian-style food is in the first place. And fortunately, here in Utah, people kind of know. We've been around long enough. We've been doing this for over 16 years. People generally in Utah know what we do and what we serve. But as we get out to Texas and Oklahoma and some of the outer markets, if you will, from our home base here in Utah, we get to teach people what that's all about. And we love doing that because it means we get to give out a lot of food and share that with folks. So I find that to be a lot of fun. There are some competitors in the space, but generally speaking, most of them kind of do something a little bit different, or maybe they have a big wide menu, because Hawaiian-style food, you can have a pretty broad menu, and they offer variety. Or others are maybe like, we know Waikiki and the tourist view of Hawaii, and when you think of going on vacation, this is what we're going to present. And for us, we get this beauty of saying, no, this is actually our founders grew up in Hawaii. They are Hawaiian. This is what they grew up making in their backyard, and we're going to keep ours pretty simple because we want to make the best mac salad and teriyaki chicken you've ever had, not just have it be one more thing on the menu. So I think our flavor is also where it gives us we'll call it our competitive flair, but a lot of it's just educating people on what we even do in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the fun things about your brand is you're still sized, to a point where the owners are there, right?
Yeah, I was with them today,
in
fact.
So they're at the office then on a typical Tuesday.
Yeah, they come in and meet with us, and I think for me, what they come in for the most part is to make sure that we're not getting too far off the path, right? There's an idea and a concept that's here, and there's things that are authentic to their Hawaiian upbringing, and there's things that are not. And so we may have ideas and fun things that we want to do, and I always use them as a sounding board to say, hey, is this actually something that you would eat in Hawaii? Is this something you would have made growing up, or are we getting a little bit too creative here? And so, yeah, they come in often, and we get to bounce ideas off of them. And more than anything, the most fun part about them coming in is, and I tell our teams this, because every new store we open, we start with a culture night, and the founders are there and they meet the teams. And I remind everybody, there's not many brands I've worked for, and I've worked for a few brands where I get to meet the founders and pick their brains. And so for our teams, having them come around and get to introduce themselves and talk to them, and not even just introduce themselves, get to know them, is a pretty special thing that we still get to have with Kimo and Kalani around.
Yeah, that's great. Brothers, right? Kimo and Kalani.
Yeah, both brothers.
Yeah,
yep.
Wonderful. Good. So tell us about the company just sold.
It did. Yep.
And so you're sitting at what kind of unit count are you at today?
So we just ended the year at 60 locations. So
Wonderful.
yeah, in fact, I joined 3.5 years ago at 22 locations. So it was kind of crazy to hit the end of the year and realize we've already gotten to 60.
Yeah, just over one a month.
Yeah,
pace.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do more than that this year. Our goal this year is to go for 15. So I hopefully, not that I'll be sitting here necessarily at the same time next year, but expect to be at 75 by the end of this coming year. So this year we're already in now. I can't believe it's 2025.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So you were owned by the Savory Fund, and were you owned by the Savory Fund when you started with the company?
Yeah, so the Savory Fund got involved with Kimo and Kalani back in 2017. And so, yeah, when I joined in 2021, the Savory Fund was still there and very active and busy with the business.
Yeah, and the Savory Fund model is they buy a portion of the company, not the whole thing. And the whole idea is that they're supposed to help you. They're there to help propel growth.
Yeah, typically what they do, so they like to find brands between 5 to 10 units. They do typically take a majority stake in the business, but like in our case, they took a majority stake, but Kimo and Kalani are still owners in the business. And then their goal is to grow it to, let's call it 50-ish units. We got to 56 before the actual transaction occurred. And at that point, it's out of their sweet spot. They're great at coming in and giving this foundation of the brand, helping them scale. It's really hard to grow from, in our case, 6 to 56 units if you're a founder and you've never done it before. So they add that expertise. And then at that point, they're kind of like, okay, they're big enough. Time to get a return on that investment. So let's find a new majority ownership group, which is what happened. Savory still are minority owners in the business. Kimo and Kalani are still owners in the business. They're just not as large a piece of the business as they were before. And so then they can go and focus on the next up and coming brand that they want to support while we go and do our thing and keep growing with this new partner.
So you have 20-something stores and you're scaling it. What are some of those hard parts you were just alluding to?
Yeah, well, I think if I'm Kimo and Kalani early days, I mean, these were two guys from Hawaii that knew how to make great food and had never worked in a restaurant business. Outside of in high school, they worked for a brand called Zippy's. So by the time they got to 6 units, they were just overwhelmed by legal, payroll, real estate, construction, IT, you name it. And so Savory came in and was really able to say, hey, we've got this great team of people that are experts in this business. We've got that part for you. You guys keep the heart and the soul of the brand and keep it on those rails, and we're going to get you all the infrastructure in place to operate professionally, if you will, to grow and scale. As I came in, what really shifted is I joined at, like I said, 22 units. Most of the day-to-day functions were being run by Savory outside of day-to-day operations. The operations team, our district managers and general managers were, of course, running stores. But when it came to all those other functions I was mentioning, Savory did that. When I came in, it was that transition to say, okay, the next group of partners we bring into the business, they're not going to have that expertise. So I came on as the president and then later promoted as CEO. As I came on, I built that whole team in-house to where now, instead of Savory doing payroll and IT and construction and development, that we have our own team and our own office now down in Lehigh that basically does all the back office side. So as we transition from Savory being the majority owners to being minority owners, they no longer need to be involved in the day-to-day. They can, lend some strategic advice, but we do all of the functions in-house. And so building those capabilities that just at 6 units, you don't have the money to have the expertise that's required to scale from 6 to 56 units.
So the small size unit goes to Savory, and one of the immediate things they're picking up then would be like accounting systems, people to
training systems, food safety systems, a formalized payroll system, even the expertise to go out and pick real estate. You think about these local brands where they've got such a following that, not that the real estate doesn't matter, but if you have good enough food and you're local, sometimes you can make it in a D real estate site, where now as you start to scale and get bigger, you can't make those same decisions. You've got to have more data and analytics behind the real estate. And that's where Savory also brings in that expertise to say, hey, we've done this once or twice now. Once we understand what your brand is, now we can go help you pick better sites and to help you scale to this level as well. So on many fronts.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I think Brad Giles is a tremendous site location person.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
what
the
a,
wealth of knowledge he has.
what a tremendous resource he is. Then I would imagine for you in running a brand under the same
him and Andrew and
sure.
and even Steve Black on the legal side. Like there's so many just experts there that again at 6 units, the horsepower that some of those folks I just named and many others that work at Savory, you couldn't afford them as 6 units. You just couldn't.
Okay, so Savory comes in, they help you get to your growth objective up here, and then now you have a new private equity partner, right? And who's that?
It's Blue Marlin and Trive Capital are
Okay.
the two main ones there.
And the both. And do they have experience in other food service industries or?
Yeah, they've got some other businesses. I'd say they're a pretty broad portfolio. I don't even know all the various businesses that they have in it, but they definitely have food concepts that they are invested in. I think Jersey Mike's is one. They've got another investment in a group called Mission Barbecue that's kind of out of the other side of the country from us. So they have some of that expertise that they can also lend to the real estate side of things as we get bigger and broader across the country that they're going to help us with.
What's it like moving from one partner like that to another? I would imagine everybody's got different objectives, different ways they handle things. Is it kind of just resetting it all over together again?
I think it's we're all still, it's still fresh and new, and we're all still learning each other and understanding what are priorities for different groups and what are they thinking about. And a lot of it right now is just learning our business and learning who we are. And so a lot of my time is spent kind of educating them and helping them understand, hey, here's what we've done. Here's what's gotten us to the success at this point. Now let's bounce ideas of like what's going to get us to the next mountaintop. And so just really figuring that out and understanding the new relationships and new reporting. And, it's unique to us in the sense of we used to office essentially out of Savory's office, and then we officed out of the same building that Savory was in. And now our current office is 5 minutes from Savory, and our new partners are headquartered in Dallas and Washington, D.C. So even those relationships from the standpoint of we just can't drive down the street and meet up is a new thing that we're just sort of navigating. But it's fun, and for me, it's exciting to work through that because it's boring to stand still and just do the same thing every day. So.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's flip to the food for a minute because the food's amazing. Okay, so what's your go-to? If you're at a store, what are you ordering right now?
My go-to is honestly it's always one of our plates, mini or a regular plate, mac salad, rice, and then the proteins. But our Katsu chicken, we introduced a spicy yobo sauce and a spicy mayo at the beginning of last year. If you take both of those and you drizzle them on the Katsu chicken, it'll change your life. It's phenomenal.
That's it?
Spicy, sweet,
life-changing,
creamy.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. And then, of course, you had the rice and the mac salad. And it's
about an ideal Mo Bettah's location from a real estate standpoint. What are you looking for? And what's the size? What's the layout? How many seats are you looking for? What's ideal?
Yeah, I think anything kind of close to around 2,500 square feet is perfect for us. We can go down to 2,300 square feet. We can go up to 3,200 square feet. We've got a reasonably broad range. We love drive-through if we can find it. If we can, it's not a necessity. I think there was a period of time coming out of COVID where it felt like a necessity. But at this point, drive-through is not a necessity. But we love end-cap drive-throughs.
Do you know how much sales you're doing out of the drive-through versus non-drive-through?
We're still figuring that out. And what I mean by that is a lot of our initial locations, which are some of our busiest locations because they've just been around for so long, they're not drive-through. And so we're still kind of learning now that we're flexing and saying, hey, it doesn't have to be drive-through. It can be non-drive-through. We're still figuring out what is drive-through worth versus what it's not worth. We think it's pretty good for us. When we do a drive-through, it's anywhere from 30 to 40% of our sales. But I've got some really busy stores here in Salt Lake that don't have a drive-through that beat a drive-through AUV. So still figuring that out. But end cap drive-through, I would call it our preference. And what we really love is we love to find things that are near daily needs. And I say that because we're still educating people on what Hawaiian-style food is. And so we like to be near a high school because people are going there every day. We like to be near a grocery store, or we like to be near a gym, something that's driving traffic that gets people to drive by and go, Mo Bettah's, what is that? I need to go in and check that out. And so our preference is to find places like that. Now here in Utah, I don't need as much of the daily needs as I need a great traffic, great population base. Like, Murray is an example. We just opened up a location in Murray, Utah. There's not a grocery store or a gym or a high school that's right nearby there, but phenomenal location for us because there's plenty of humans in that area that know Mo Bettah's and are just happy that we're closer to their house than we were before we opened up that store.
So when you're looking at, let's take a market maybe like Vegas that you might,
Yep.
that you know less well, right, than a Salt Lake market.
Yep.
You're looking at a new intersection. It's something that the broker's hot on. It's something that your real estate rep is hot on.
Yep.
What do you do? How do you figure out if you feel like that spot's got what it takes to be a home run Mo Bettah's?
Yeah, I think first off, you got to have some visibility. If I'm buried in the back of the center, I'm sure everybody's going to say that, but I'm buried in the back of the center and we're in a new market like that, that's just not going to work. We've got to have some visibility. There's got to be good ingress and egress. If it's hard to get in there, and Vegas is one of those markets in particular that can be where you have to like almost drive through a parking lot and around a corner. And so you might see us from Blue Diamond, let's say, but if we're not careful, you have to drive all the way through to get to us, and people are just going to be like, wait a minute, I just got lost trying to get through this parking lot. So can you get to us easy? And then I mentioned those daily needs. Outside of that, the harder judgment calls, I think people get too fixated on traffic counts. And they're so excited you've got all this traffic. But sometimes those roads are roads that are so busy that people aren't stopping. They're like, my goal is to get from point A to point B. And if you're in the middle of point A or point B, I don't have time to stop because it's going to take me 10 minutes to get back on this road and try to get through. So trying to do that gut feel to say, okay, is this a road that people are going to get on and off of, or are they just trying to get through it? So it's kind of that assessment of that side of it. We also, looking at demographics, love to find, we kind of call it the champion of the underserved. We're not looking for incomes that are high six-figure household incomes. Like we love to be in communities where maybe the income's $70,000 to $90,000. They've got enough disposable income that they want to eat out, but they're also looking for value. They want to know they're going to come into Mo Bettah's, and I don't mean value from the dollar menu value. I mean they're going to come into Mo Bettah's, they're going to spend with a drink maybe $15, and they're going to walk out of there feeling full. Or maybe they're going to spend $20 and they're going to walk out with leftovers for their next meal. And so that community where they have enough money to do that, but they're looking for that value and that price, so we love that.
And it's it's a good reward proposition for them, right? At $15, $20, if they go to the barbecue place, they're going to be $22 to $30, right? And so just notching in there, it's a great segment of the.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The other thing we look at on top of that too is, we're a different take on food than some other places have. We actually just opened up a location in Eagle Mountain. And we always do this Friends No Hana event, and our goal is to just serve as many people as we can. And I remember we were shutting down for the night because we have a time slot that we do it. And we were ending, and this poor guy comes walking through the parking lot probably 15 minutes after we've run out of food. I mean, we've served at this point, 2,000 people. And he comes walking through, and we're shutting down. We don't have any food left. It's not like I'm just being mean. I have no food left. And the poor guy goes, "Are you kidding me? You guys are closed." I was so excited. He's like, "Look at my options. I'm going to have to either go get a burger or a taco or a pizza. I was hoping for something different." And so for us, we look at that in that community to say, okay, if can we give variety to this community, that's where we think we're going to have a home run in a lot of cases, as long as there's not too much variety. Because then there's the other side where it's like, if I've got 300 choices, maybe we're not going to be that point of differentiation. But we love communities like Eagle Mountain, where they don't have a ton of options out there necessarily that are different from pizza, burgers, and tacos and things that we can add that different meal for them a couple times a week.
You talked about adding spicy mayo on your menu last year.
Yeah.
How hard is that now that you're sitting in the 60s on your store count to implement a new product like that?
It just takes more diligence. I think, I've got experience at several hundred units, 500 or more units. And so I don't think it's hard to implement at 60, but you have to be more diligent in it. You no longer can say, oh, we're just going to throw this into the 10 stores we have and see if it works. It's a process to say we're going to ideate. We're going to see if the recipe for the spicy mayo works. Okay, now let's put it into a restaurant. Can they actually make it, or is it too complex? Okay, we figured out the ops. Now let's go test it in 2 or 3 locations. Oh, customers seem to like it, and then expand from there. So it's just a process. And luckily, we've got enough between myself and others in the brand that we've had experience doing that and at scale that we can replicate that at Mo Bettah's.
You mentioned to me a few months ago when we were talking the amount of chicken that you guys were buying. I think it was on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And I remember, still to this day, it was just such a big number. I was like blown away.
Yeah.
How much chicken are you buying right now?
Like 130,000 pounds a week.
Wild.
It's January. It's slightly slower, so maybe it's 125,000 pounds right now.
And then when would peak in the year for you be? Was that summertime?
Peak leading up to Christmas is always very busy for us. Also leading up to like graduation cycle. So what happens for us is January's quiet. I think everybody just spent all their money on Christmas, so they don't go out to eat quite as much. And then you get into February and everybody's like, it's okay. I need to do this stuff again. And then it ramps all the way up through June. In between like May and June is very busy. Then you usually have a little bit of a summer drop off. Everybody's traveling. They switch over to hamburgers and, they want the McDonald's that's on the road on their way to wherever they're, national park they're visiting or what have you. And then you come out of the summer and it ramps all the way through till Christmas. Then it slows down. It's kind of this normal cycle.
With that kind of volume of chicken, like, are you going through a supplier or are you direct to the farmers?
We're pretty much going through supplier. We get most of our products through Cisco. Mm-hmm. We know the farms that they're getting their chicken from, but at the end of the day, we're making it in-house. So we're literally buying raw chicken thigh. It's not that unique of an item that we're purchasing as the base product that we're getting. It's the teriyaki sauce and everything else we add to it that gives it the flavor. But no, we're buying most of that direct from Cisco, and then, and that's kind of it, luckily. Most of the products we make, you can source pretty much anywhere in the U.S., which is, I think, to our advantage. It's all how you put them together, and the recipes actually make it once you get it in the restaurant.
I'll never forget, as a teenager, my dad found himself invested in a small chain. He had 3 stores, Japanese fast casual restaurant, and I'll never forget making the teriyaki sauce. You would smell like ginger and garlic for like 5 days.
Yeah. Luckily, our teriyaki sauce is made by our amazing partner, Aloha Shoyu, who is from Hawaii, and then they finish it in Vegas for it. But our head of ops, our chief operating officer, John Conine, speaks of the days of when they used to make it in the store and have to, boil it and smelling like all that, and just the sticky mess that can be making a sauce like that.
It was a bad day if you let that pot boil over.
Yeah.
That's like a multi-hour situation.
Well, even in our stores, we used to pour the cup. So we used to get these gigantic 5-gallon containers of sauce, but then we still poured all of our little sauce cups.
Yes.
Now our partner makes the sauce cups for us. But if you imagine you would walk into a restaurant, it's 8 a.m. on any given day, and every table is just full of these ramekins. And then you've got team members just out there pouring cups, and the mess that would get left over from that was incredible.
Plenty of spills, right?
Yeah, plenty of spills, and again, it's sticky. It's hard to clean up, and our restaurants are cleaner, and our employees, our team members are happier that they're no longer filling all those cups every day.
Yeah. Let's talk about for a minute, because one of the other remarkable things that you think about you is your health journey. There was a lot less Rob today that's sitting here than it would have been sitting here had we done this podcast, a year ago?
Probably a year and a half now.
Yeah.
I've dropped a good 80 plus pounds. So that's been nice.
Just a minor 80 pounds.
Minor 80 pounds. We had an interesting journey last year where the team and I got really into, I'd started to drop the weight before this, but we got really into running. In fact, my team's trying to bait me in right now to running the Ogden Marathon again. And they reminded me, I was kind of like, it's cold. I don't know if I want to train for it. And they reminded me that last year I was dumb enough to sign up for it 3 weeks before it happened. I think it's like this year it's May 17th or something. And they were like, what are you talking about? You got plenty of time to train. Last year you gave yourself 3 weeks. So, fun little journey. It's been fun to see the team galvanize behind things like that, but I certainly feel better and feel healthier 80 pounds later.
So if you're gonna do it this year, you're gonna start a little further out than 3 weeks.
I will start out a little further. I had been running because the team also, we did the Ragnar in June. So I'd already been running before that, but I was naively unprepared for marathon level running when I signed up for that. So this year I have a little bit better sense of what I'm in for.
Well, and you can pretty much run out your front door and do that marathon.
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
Right?
Yeah, there's a secret little bus you can take if you live up in the valley. And
perfect.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So it works out well. So they're probably going to sucker me into doing it again. But they suckered me into, aside from that marathon, we did the Ragnar, which is a 200-mile relay. We did 2 halves and another full marathon last year. So they got me into doing a lot of running. So I don't know, maybe one marathon. If I do one this year, maybe that'll be the only one.
So that's the way to get you to do something, is you just got to start a competition.
Yeah.
And then you just bite.
We're a competitive bunch, myself included. Yeah, it's hard for me to hard for me to let it go if the team's trying to sucker me into how I compete with them. Right now, I have them. I've done one more marathon than the rest of the guys that I'm running with. So if I stop doing them, then they're going to catch me. So I guess that's the other motivation.
The good point. You got to keep going now. You're committed.
Exactly.
That's right. Going back to that competitive nature, what kind of metrics do you like to see at Mo Bettah's? Do you look at daily metrics?
Yeah.
Weekly?
No, plenty. I think that's the beauty of Mo Bettah's and the team that we built there is we have a value called Ho'okuku, which is all about competition and not competition where I'm going to step on your back to get ahead, but competition of like it's me against myself, but I want to beat you, but I want to beat you because you're pushing me to be better. And so we've built a team that fosters that. So daily, I mean, we're looking at sales, we're looking at food costs, we're looking at labor, we're looking at customer sentiment, are customers happy and enjoying the food? And we're looking at all these things on a regular basis. In fact, one of the most powerful tools I think we have is through a platform called Ovation, where customers will leave feedback, and it allows our leadership teams to go back and reach out to those customers. A lot of it's positive, fortunately, but when we do have a misstep, it's a chance to go say, hey, we can be better than this. How are we going to make this right? How are we going to A, get better for the future, but B, get to that specific customer? And so we're looking at all that.
Is that a customer survey that comes off of credit card data then?
Yeah, so a lot of it's linked to our loyalty program. So when you come in and you use your credit card is linked to your loyalty account. And so when you use that credit card, it's like, hey, Chris, you made a purchase. We have your information. We're going to send you a survey. How was your visit? You just came in. What'd you think today? And you can leave that. There's a QR code you can do and some different ways to get to leave that feedback, but that's probably the most common way is through that platform.
So you've mentioned Vegas a few times, and you were talking about Vegas as you came in. The 8th island, right?
The 9th island.
9th island. There you go. How has the market been down there for you? Has the market received you well?
Market's been great. I think it was one of those things where for Kimo and Kalani in particular, they knew we had to do their heritage justice because you've got a lot of Hawaiians and Polynesians down there. They know what Hawaiian-style food is. We don't need to educate the community of Las Vegas what Hawaiian-style food is, and the reception's been great. And it's been fun to see how so many folks that come and visit are like, this reminds me of home. You're making it the right way, and that validation. Not to say we don't have our opportunities to always get better. We're always pushing ourselves. But it's been fun to go down to Vegas and get that validation and to see Kimo and Kalani get a bit of that validation. Like, hey, what you've created here in Utah and now brought to Las Vegas, it resonates with those communities who really know what Hawaiian-style food is. So we love that.
As you think about new markets, do you tend to gravitate towards markets that have kind of a higher Pacific Islander population base?
No.
Seattle's, LA's?
No, not at all, actually. We gravitate to where we feel like it's a market that has the right demographics and the right income levels. And again, we really try to gravitate to, again, the champion of the underserved. Like we're not looking at the sexy markets. I think it's fun to say you're in Chicago. It's fun to say you're in D.C. and New York and those. I like to make money. And where are we going to make money? We make money in communities where they're looking for some variety. They're looking for variety, but they're looking for variety of food that they know. And so Hawaiian-style food might be unique to a lot of folks, but if I go to Dallas, Texas, and I tell them I'm serving chicken, steak, rice, and macaroni salad, they're like, oh, that's what Hawaiian-style food is? I love that stuff. I cooked that in my backyard last night, but I didn't put teriyaki sauce. Those are the communities that we're looking for.
When you get to 60 units, and I'm always sales-oriented, I think it just comes from my training of starting as a broker.
You and me both. The world goes around with sales. So.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about the way a typical store is structured. You have one kind of manager for the store, store manager.
Yeah, general manager we call them.
Perfect. And then is there a couple of assistant managers?
No assistants. We have shift leads fundamentally that work in tandem with the general managers and run the shifts. And we've had assistant managers before, but it's probably because I've been doing this close to 30 years. I think too often you get an assistant manager and they get comfortable, and I end up calling them a blocker, which sounds weird to say it that way. But sometimes if they're comfortable, like they're your pipeline to get your next group of general managers. The most success we have is when we can promote from within. And when you find this like lifelong assistant manager, that unfortunately, not to offend anybody, doesn't do us any good. We need people that are hungry and looking for that next spot. So what we tend to have is shift leads, and then we'll identify shift leads that have a lot of potential, but they need extra training. So then we'll put them into our MIT program. They'll spend some time learning what a general manager does, how to lead a team, how to lead people, and then we'll migrate them from an MIT program up to a general manager spot. So we kind of have assistants in the sense of you end up with these MITs, but they know their sole mission in life is to become a general manager. Their mission in life is not to become an assistant.
So when you go into manager and training, is that like a virtual training?
No, it's in a restaurant. There's a program that we have. We've got a learning management system that's got digital components.
So it's
to
like
it.
a crash course. Like you go to this for 2 weeks or something like that.
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
So there's a lot of training that they'll do in their original store, and most of that training is how to make our food, how to serve customers, and kind of all those components. Then usually their general manager will teach them a little bit about ordering and scheduling. And
I can only hope that you're yelling at them like Bobby Flay.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
That's the best way to get it
for
done.
sure. Yeah.
But then we pull them actually out of that store.
Yeah.
And like Sandy, our general manager, Mandy at the Sandy location is just phenomenal.
Mandy at Sandy,
yeah.
Can't forget that.
But we'll take these folks. They'll go spend 4 weeks with Mandy. Mandy's not the only one. Mandy's just the first one that comes to mind. But they'll go spend 4 weeks with Mandy, and she'll say, okay, great, you've learned all this stuff to this date. Maybe you've been at Mo Bettah's for a year. Maybe you've been with us 2 years. You've learned all this. Let me help you hone that into how to actually then now lead a restaurant. And it helps to take them out of their home store, because in their home store, they're busy running shifts and serving customers. Yeah. And when they go to Sandy with Mandy, it does sound weird to say it that way,
right.
But when they go with her, she can focus on their leadership skills. They do run shifts, but their focus is them. Their focus isn't on the restaurant. And so they get 4 weeks of development for them, not on the restaurant. And so then when they come out of that program and graduate, Mandy and the other counterparts she has help us understand, are they ready to take a store, or do they need something more? And then we'll kind of assess that. And assuming they're ready, if we have a store available, we'll go put them in a store, and they'll get to work.
Okay, so you have 60 GMs. How do you keep 60 GMs, if you're all in a canoe, so to speak, rowing in the same direction? How does that work?
It comes down to leadership. And fortunately, we have an awesome team from John Kona, our head of ops, COO, he has 2 directors, and then they have several district managers. And so it is a bit of the telephone game, but it's really making sure that we're unified in the messaging and what we're trying to accomplish, and align vision to say, okay, I can't be in every restaurant every day. John can't be in every restaurant every day. But the communication to the directors of ops and the district managers, that they're leading those general managers in a way that keeps us all on the same page. And so we've got other mechanisms, like actually at the end of this month, on the 29th of this month, all of our general managers are coming to Utah for a meeting that we try to do twice a year, where we bring them together and talk about what we're trying to do as a brand and do a little bit of coaching and training. They get to spend some time with our founders and connect with them, and we celebrate and reward, and we'll be crowning the top GM and top DM for the system.
There you go. What does the top GM get?
They get to go to Hawaii.
Oh, there you
go. So we do a trip every year where
our
our founders and anybody who's been with the brand for more than 5 years and is a general manager or support team member, they get to go to Hawaii. And then the top GM and the top DM come with us, and they get to bring, if they have a spouse, they get to bring a significant other on the trip as well. And then we spend 5-6 days in Hawaii. Yes, there's some beach time and enjoying that, but a lot of it is actually spent letting Kimo and Kalani take them around the island and say, hey, here's Waikiki and the fun tourist stuff. Now let us show you where we actually grew up, and let's talk about our values, and let's talk about our food, and let's let you see, like, we sell this thing musubi. Hey, you get that at 7-Eleven in Hawaii. Let's go to 7-Eleven and show you that. And there's a lot of food. We eat a lot. We eat a lot. For my diet, I have to watch it, but we eat a lot.
I was going to, look, you're in the food service business, right?
Yeah.
What is musubi?
Musubi. So musubi is it's essentially rice, a piece of, well, it doesn't have to be Spam. In our case at Mo Bettah, it's Spam musubi. You take rice, we mix that with furikake, which is like a seaweed sesame seasoning. You put Spam that's been tossed in, it's been fried and tossed in teriyaki sauce, and then you wrap it in nori, which is seaweed basically. So it's kind of like Hawaiian sushi, sort of. But literally what you find in the islands in Hawaii is it's packaged up and sold in a hot case in 7-Eleven. And so they use it, like in Hawaii, it's kind of like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You're going to go to the beach, you grab a few musubis, you shove them in your purse, your bag, whatever you're carrying, and you feed that to everybody while you're sitting at the beach.
So if I've been pronouncing it Masubis up to this point in time in my life,
You're a little off. Musubi.
Yeah, I sound definitely like a Hale.
Yeah, you definitely sound like a Haole if you're calling it Masabi. It's
that.
Musubi.
I may or may not be guilty of that. Yeah, right.
But you go to Hawaii, you're going to find it's not just Spam. There's teri chicken, there's Katsu chicken, there's
for sure.
Portuguese sausage. They got a whole lineup of Musubi.
Yeah, a lot of variety
Delicious.
of it. Does that give you anxiety bringing 60 general managers here, knowing that you have 60 stores that don't have any GMs in them?
No, it's a fun time. No,
It's a
I
fun
mean,
time.
look,
Okay.
if they've done their job right and they've trained their shift leads and their team how to do it, then those restaurants can run for a day and a half, 2 days without their general manager. So
Yeah. You know,
we might position it in January, one of our lower times of the year, so that we've got that. But no,
it's always one of the parts, though, that you know, a handful of our guests that come on the Dirt Dog podcast are living on the road, and they're getting, you know, hundreds of stores open. And your version of living the Dirt Dog life is slightly different. It's scaling, and it's adding these new humans and systems, and you know, entrusting people to take this vision to the customer.
yeah.
And it's a whole different thing, right? And so I think it's just so daunting to me to think about that, right? But it may be just as daunting as thinking about opening 200 locations, right?
Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, I think they both have their own unique challenges. I mean, my whole team, most of them has diamond medallion status with Delta. We're on the road quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, we're opening 15 locations, not 200. But at the same point to what you said, it's so much about trying to protect the core of what this brand is we're educating people what this brand is, that the work we're doing now is going to set the foundation to where someday I hope we're opening up hundreds in a year. But it's because of the work we're doing now that allows us to do that without, you know, imploding on ourselves.
Do you find, because of the nature of your food, do you run into exclusives sometimes with Asian food concepts where there might be a Chinese restaurant in a shopping center that blocks you from coming in?
A little bit. I'd say, you know, we've ran into that a little bit from time to time with Panda Express or some others where they serve, you know, rice and protein concepts. It's usually rice and protein that's the exclusion. So there's a few, but so much different than coffee. My coffee days, you know, there's that big green behemoth out there that has an exclusive to a lot of centers. We have a lot more available real estate with what we're doing than we ever found with the coffee business not being in the green apron. So it's there's some of that, but not too much, luckily.
If you had to hit, you know, one or two goals, 5-year goals, you know, kind of reach goals for the brand, where you'd like to see it over the next 5 years, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'd love to see us get to, you know, 150 plus units. Like, I think that would be incredible. I mean, our 3-year goal is to get to 120. So 5 years, let's maybe 150 is too low as I say that out loud. Maybe it's 200. But I think that's a big goal. I think maintaining our profitability is a big goal to me. And I say that, of course, everybody wants to be profitable, but I think that it's too easy sometimes these days to get an investor and go, give me money, give me money, give me money. And then when the money dries up, you're like, wait a minute, we're not financially sound. And now how are we going to keep this thing going? And people stop back and talk about pause to perfect and engineer the P&L at that point. I'd rather keep a healthy P&L where we're funding and fueling our growth so that we can just keep that train rolling. So to know that we could be at 150 plus units, we're funding most of our growth because we're staying disciplined in how we're growing and how we're driving profitability. I think that's a big objective of mine. And I think, you know, the other side in the next 5 years, I want to see a lot of the leaders that I'm working with today running their own concepts. Or, you know, who knows, maybe I'm somewhere else and I'm watching one of them run Mo Bettahs. But I want to see a handful of our leaders doing what I get the pleasure to do every day now. So that would be pretty rewarding to me.
It feels like for so many of the food operators that I talk with on a daily basis that it's almost like we've gone through a war over the last 5 years just because of how difficult it's been to try to figure out profit, back to your point of maintaining profit margin. And, you know, we've got so many variables that you're likely facing out there, you know, between, you know, rising labor costs, you know, finding good labor talent, training that labor, and then this entire world of online ordering, right, through the apps that's coming in. And then, of course, the apps are trying to get their piece of the market share, so that's driving your profit margin down. You know, what are you seeing out there, and what are you grappling with today? What's the biggest problem you see?
Yeah, look, I think the apps it's a real thing, right? Because they want an oversized portion of your profits for a posting on their app. And it's kind of this unfortunate necessary evil because we're all doing it. If you don't play the game, you got a lot of revenue that you're leaving on the table. And so you've got to be smart about how you structure your arrangements with those folks and how you ensure you've got profitability in your business when you're using those apps. But I think the biggest thing I see at this point is focus on the fundamentals. Like everybody tries to get so cute, they forget how to execute. And so I think that, when you focus on how are you making your food? How are you making your food in a way that is easier for your teams so that you're not spending an inordinate amount of labor just to produce this product that might end up being cheaper on the product side, but you're spending more on labor to do it. How do you remember that in a lot of cases, menu innovation isn't going to drive a ton of revenue, but it drives complexity. So how do you really just double down on the product you're making? Like right now, one of our biggest focuses, how to grill better. How do we make sure our teams grill food better? We grill chicken. 80% of every plate we sell has teriyaki chicken on it. So what's one of our big initiatives to kick off the year? Let's make sure we know how to make teriyaki chicken really freaking good. And so not trying to tout ourselves, but I think too many times you're like, oh, what's our next chicken or what's our next protein or what's this other thing we're trying to create? And the reality is if we can make the best teriyaki chicken out there on the market, people are going to come back for it. So let's just focus on that. And I think that helps from a cost perspective of eliminating complexity. But you've got to be looking for every nickel and dime you can on the P&L. Don't get complacent. Window washing. Like, can your teams wash windows? Or do you need to hire somebody to wash windows? Depends on the size of the building and your volume, I think. That's not an easy answer, but you got to look at all those things and say, how do we eliminate unnecessary spending just because it's...
You've had a storied career. You've been with a handful of different retailers. Tell us about one of the bigger mistakes you've ever made in business and what'd you learn from it?
One of the biggest mistakes I saw was forgetting the power of brand. And I can't say that I was necessarily the decision maker on it, but I was the one who had to implement it. And it was when we actually converted. So I was running the Noah's Bagels brand, and there was a belief that it didn't matter what the brand was. And Einstein's, Noah's, whatever, it's all serving a bagel. And so we converted the Pacific Northwest from Noah's Bagels to Einstein's. And along the way, we also bought another local bagel brand in Portland, Oregon, and we converted all of them to Einstein's. And it was what was literally said to me was like, you know what? They're not going to have any other option. They're going to have to buy Einstein bagels. And the consumer was like, no, we like local. Noah's wasn't local to the Pacific Northwest, but it was local to the West Coast. And our sales literally cut in half. And it wasn't because our service dropped. It wasn't because our quality dropped. It was the power of the brand. And so I think staying true to your brand ethos and understanding the value of that brand ethos, that was a tough lesson. That was a hard lesson. But for me, it was one where I sit back and I talk about growing and scaling Mo Bettah's. The biggest challenge for us now is like keeping the framework of what Mo Bettah's is about today and remembering it's got us to this point. Let's not just assume that now we can just grow and do whatever we want. Like people like Mo Bettah's because of what Mo Bettah's is, and that's gonna, not that we can't evolve a little bit and we can't iterate to some extent, but changing the core of who we are and just assuming we can do whatever. Changing from Noah's to Einstein's was a travesty. And I wouldn't repeat that mistake again, for sure.
Well, what a great message to end with on brand and such a fun brand. So many of us here in Utah are so connected to the Polynesian community. Not sure if you're aware, but my youngest of my 5 children is adopted. He's from Namuka, Tonga. Oh, wow. And, we feel privileged to have him in our household. And I don't know what it is about the Polynesian people. It's just, maybe they're just kind of, never take life too serious attitude or what it is. I feel like there's so many lessons that so many of us can learn from some of these great Polynesian people.
I think so much connected to family and history and these core values that I learn something new every day, and it just makes me happier and happier to be in literally the best job I've ever been in because there's so much more meaning to it than just the food. The food we serve is the vehicle to share Aloha. It's not about being a restaurant. It's about sharing Aloha. We just get to do it over food. And there's so many deep connected meanings, I think, across not just Hawaiian culture, but all of Polynesia that, it's a pretty awesome group to be engaged with.
Yeah, I think you can feel that in your stores, whether that's your leadership coming top down or kids founders coming top down. You can feel that feeling when you walk in the door, which is awesome, right?
Oh, I'm glad you can feel it because that's the intent. So that's cool to hear.
Well, thanks for coming on the pod. And for everybody out there, go check out Mo Bettah's. Get yourself the chicken katsu, right?
Yes,
with
spicy mayo,
a little
yobo
of the
sauce.
spicy mayo.
Yeah.
Oh, and the yellow sauce?
And the yobo sauce.
Yobo
the yobo
sauce. Okay, there you go.
It's a spicy teriyaki sauce. It's the combo of the two is
There you go.
that's the key.
There you go. You got the inside tip. That's the plate to get. So thanks for coming on today, Rob.
No, thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.